What's good YouTube, it's Adam from My Music Mole. Welcome to a brand new video. Today we're going to go ahead and remake from scratch in Logic Travis Scott's Thank God. Tempo for this one is 135 beats per minute and the track is produced by Travis Scott, Kanye West, Ritter, BoogzDaBeast, WondaGurl, and FNZ. And for this remake I'm only going to be working on part 1 of the track. As you know, there are quite a few parts in it, so let's get to that first bell sound. So for that I'm going to bring in Logic's Alchemy. We're going to start off with one of the sounds in this bell. It is going to be a layered sound. We're going to go to mallets and we're going to go over to the Dreamy Bells preset. So let's get that melody drawn in. Open up Logic's Alchemy. We're going to move the performance over to Dark Bells. Next, let's layer that up with another bell. I'm going to create a new software instrument track. We're going to go over to our library right here. We're going to go to Synthesizer. We're going to go to Bell. And we're going to go to the Dreamy Music Box Bells. We're going to copy down the same pattern, and it sounds like this. Kind of gets that sort of mid-darker bell sound. Except for this, what I'm going to do is going to select them all and I'm just going to push it off the grid a little bit so it creates a little bit of dynamics in the sound. So this is the attack and then we get this sound coming right after it. Next, we're going to bring in a sound that really just emphasizes the attack of this bell. We're going to go bring in Logic's Alchemy once again. We're going to go back to mallets and we're going to go to the preset called Hammered Wood right over here. We're going to copy down the same pattern. Except this I just want on the grid. We'll leave the sound as is. Just layer that in with the other stuff. Next, we're going to layer up this bell with one more sound just to top it all off and give it sort of that grit that we need in it. So we're going to create a new software instrument track and we're going to bring in, once again, Logic's Alchemy. We're going to copy down the same pattern. We're going to open up Alchemy and go to a preset under mallets. And we're going to go to a preset called Hybrid Metal Mallet, this right here. So if we layer that with everything else. This sound I'm also going to push off the grid a little bit so that everything gets played off of each other. So I'm going to push a little bit more. Now let's take all those different sounds and make it as one preset. I'm going to group these all together by selecting all my tracks, Shift Command G. I'm going to bring in an EQ first and foremost just to shape this sound a bit. We're going to take out the low so it doesn't affect the bass that we bring it in. And I'm just going to make it a little bit darker here. Next, we're going to make it a little bit spicier, if you will, and we'll bring in Logic's Bit Crusher. Add in some noise. Now let's bring in some modulation to give the sound a little bit of movement and a little bit of width. So first off, we're going to bring in Logic's Tape Delay. We're going to go to Delay, Tape Delay, and we're going to give it that wobbly sound, sort of like this pitch drift kind of thing. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn the feedback all the way down. I'm going to turn the delay all the way down, my wet to 100%, my LFO rate to 1 Hertz, and my intensity just a little bit. We're not going to go too crazy. I'm going to pull all the way up so you see what's happening here. Since I was drifting the pitch there, I'm just going to bring it down to about like 12%-ish. Nothing too crazy. Next, we'll make it a little bit wider with some chorus. I'm going to go to the Glimmering Chorus preset. Bring it down a bit. And lastly, we need to put this in a space. Let's add in some reverb. I'm going to go bring in Logic's Chroma Verb. We're going to bring in a preset here. It can be found under Effects. It's going to be the spherical preset. Push the dry to 100. Bring the wet down a bit. I'm going to make the space a little bit smaller. And those are our bells. Next, let's get to the bass. I'm gonna create a new software instrument track, and we're gonna bring in, go to library, we're gonna go to bass, and we'll bring in the Liverpool bass preset. So that's obviously way too quiet. We got to bring that a lot louder. So I'm going to bring in the distortion right here. Let's bring that up quite a bit. I'm also going to bring in some bit crusher just to give this a little bit of grit. So let's bring that in here. So that's sort of the low portion of our bass. Next, let's get to that crazy high portion of it. So create a new software instrument track. We're going to go over to our library. We're going to go to synthesizer, bass, and we're bringing in the odd and road interaction bass preset. Let's go and just copy down this pattern. It's going to sound like this. Except I'm going to pitch this up 1 octave. And once again, we got to make this nice and loud and in your face. So I'm going to bring in the overdrive here. I'm just going to really punch this up a bit. Bring up the output. All right, so that's together. I'll bring up the tone quite a bit, all the way open. And then we're going to go ahead and bring in an exciter just to brighten this up a little bit. We'll go specialize exciter. All right, so I want this really bright on top of that bass. All right, and then we're going to bring in EQ so that it doesn't affect the other bass. We're just going to cut this out a little bit here. And we're going to brighten it up on the top end. Now let's get to that pluck melody that's sort of pushed back in the background, and we'll create this sound from scratch. We'll go to Logic's ES2 synthesizer, and it's pretty much just a sine wave. So we're going to close that up right here. Let's draw on that pattern. Now let's shape that sine wave just so it's a little bit more plucky. I'm going to pull up the attack just a touch. Pull up the release. I'll pull down the sustain actually. It's a little too much. There, something like that. And it's going to be in the background, right? So for that, let's bring in a reverb. I'm going to bring in Logic's Chroma Verb right here. Let's work with the default setting that loads up. Don't want it too much. Next is add in a texture underneath all these sounds. So for that, I'm actually going to bring in a textured loop. So I'm going to go over to I'm using Moral kits. I'm going to go to the 2023 kit, and I'm going to go to the ambience and effects update, and I'm going to go to ambience and textures, and I'm going to bring in this right here. So in the original track, it had like this underlying sort of ambience texture thing. So this is hopefully is going to match that. Let's drag that in here. Make sure it starts on the 1. So now let's just add some texture to the texture. I'm going to bring in Logic's Bit Crusher. Just going to add in a little bit more noise to it. Some of that like analog tape sound, that hiss. I'm going to add in a reverb just to push it back a little. All right, and lastly, I'm going to open up an EQ and just take out some of the bottom and some of the top. Next, let's go ahead and work on the keys that sort of layers underneath it all. So I'm going to duplicate this over because it comes in sort of in the next section, if you will. And I'm going to create a new software instrument track. And I'm going to bring in Logic's Alchemy. I'm going to go over to Mallets, and we're going to go to the Baroque preset. I'm going to bring it over to the Fat Bells performance before we draw in the melody. That layer's underneath it all. Except this I'm going to bring back because it stops halfway through. Now let's bring in that sub bass that hits on the ones. So for that, we're going to pretty much use the same Liverpool bass right here. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that up. Let's just bring it down. And I'm just going to draw this in here. Let's loop it up with our keys. Except I want it to ring out a little bit longer, so let's open up this and just drag out the release. Next thing what we gotta do here is I'm just gonna bring in an EQ, and I'm gonna take out the top ends because we just wanna focus on that low end sub info, and we're gonna layer another bass on top of it. Now let's get to that bass topper. For this, I'm going to go to user patches. I'm going to go to Mogul presets. Actually, no, not there. I'm going to go to IM presets, the Sounds of Metro Boom and Kit. And I'm going to go to the classic Metro Moog bass. We're going to copy down the same pattern. It sounds like this. Except I'm going to open up the EQ a little bit, the top end here. It's going to sound on top of this bass. We can get to the third part of this part one track. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate all of this once again over. And I'm going to take out everything we just did here. So let's take out all of this. We're going to create a new software instrument track. And we're going to create that melody, sort of that wobbly melody that we hear in the background. Let's bring in the instrument that we're going to use. It's going to be Logic's Retro Synth. And we're going to go over to Leads, and we'll go to the Cheerful Melody preset. Now let's get to the sound design. We're going to pull up the chorus to make this a lot more wobblier. Pull up the rate. I'm going to go 100% to this triangle oscillator. Next, let's pull up the sine level. Pull up the volume because it's a little quiet. And lastly, I'm just going to pull up the attack a bit here. So together. But I'm just going to add in some reverb just to put it in its own space as well. So once again, we're going to bring in Logic's Chrome Reverb. We're just going to use the default setting that loads up. And underneath all that, we get this pad sound that plays the same chords from the keys from the previous part. I'm going to bring in Logic's Alchemy for this pad sound. And for this pad sound, we're going to use another preset. We're going to go to pads. We're actually going to use this first preset here, the 1940s choir. And let's just copy down this. I'm just going to pull back the cutoff so it's a little bit more darker. Make it a little bit louder. Maybe I'll pull up the reverb a bit. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Next, I'm going to go ahead and mix it, arrange it. We'll come right back and take a listen to the remake we just put together, Travis Scott's Thank God. right there is the remake to Travis Scott's Thank God remade in Logic Pro. For your Logic users out there, I'm gonna go ahead and save this entire session for you. Place it as a downloadable link below this video. Those of you who don't use Logic, I got your back as well. I'm gonna go ahead and export all the audio stems and MIDI stems that you heard in this remake. You can find that below the like button as well. If you don't have any questions on this or just want to chat, let's go and talk in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. Catch you on the next one. Later. Peace.